Welcome to HR Prime's Lunch and Learn training session. Today's topic is supporting neurodiversity in the workplace. My name is Sam and I'll be guiding you through this session today. During this session, we'll be covering terminology, statistics, neurodiverse conditions, equality, diversity and inclusion, legal obligations, types of discrimination, reasonable adjustments, recruitment and selection, managing neurodiverse staff, other conditions, and case law. The National Autistic Society surveyed 2,000 autistic adults and found that just 16% were in full-time work. Despite these low figures, they found that of those who were unemployed, 77% wanted to work. Alongside this, data from the Office of National Statistics shows just 22% of autistic adults are in any form of paid employment. Additional research conducted by Burbank University of London Centre for Neurodiversity Research at Work found that 65% of neurodivergent applicants did not disclose their condition during the interview process, as they fear discrimination from management. Neurodiversity is defined as the range of differences in individual brain function and behaviour traits, regarded as part of the normal biological variation in the human population. The term itself has been around since the 1990s, and it's classed as an inclusivity term because it highlights that people think differently and have different motivations and strengths. Neurodivergent is defined as having cognitive functions that differ significantly to social or medical models of normal. The term neurodivergent is generally deemed as acceptable. It's estimated that 1 in 7 people are neurodivergent. It can in some instances be caused through trauma to the brain, but is also commonly genetic. Neurotypical is the opposite of neurodivergent. It's defined as a style of cognitive function that falls into dominant social and medical models of normal. And just to add that when we use the term normal in these definitions, it's not suggesting in any way that those who are neurodiverse are abnormal. It's based purely on social and medical models of the phrase normal. There's actually a huge number of diagnosed conditions that fall under the neurodiverse umbrella. While some may seem quite obvious, others may surprise you. So let's look at some of the conditions that fall under the term neurodiverse. Dyslexia, which is a difficulty with reading, writing and spelling. This can affect 1 in 10 people in the UK. Dyscalculia, difficulty in dealing with numbers, and this is thought to affect 1 in 20. Dyspraxia is a difficulty in coordinating movements. Autism is a spectrum disorder affecting communication and behaviour. Also, just to note that those previously said to have Asperger's syndrome would now fall directly under the term autism. The term Asperger's is no longer used due to the controversy surrounding Hans Asperger, whom it was named after, and his association with the Nazis. Tourette's is uncontrollable tics. These may be vocal or physical. People with Tourette's are often stereotyped to swear with vocal tics, but according to the NHS, this only presents in around 10% of cases. Hyperlexia is when someone reads early and surprisingly beyond their expected ability. Bipolar is a mental health condition that causes extreme mood swings. Global development delay, also known as GDD, is when children are delayed in reaching expected childhood milestones. OCD is obsessive compulsive disorder, and FASD is fetal alcohol syndrome disorder. Just to remind you, this is not an exhaustive list. Neurodiverse people can face significant barriers in traditional workplaces. This is because they're often designed with neurotypical people in mind. But equality can be created with effective management. So let's look at equality, diversity and inclusion. Equality is making sure everyone has equal opportunities to make the most of their talents, removing barriers and supporting individuals to achieve similar outcomes. Diversity refers to the range of people within the workforce, including different backgrounds, ages, religions, knowledges, skills and experiences. It's about valuing differences as strengths. And inclusion is ensuring everyone feels valued and accepted at work. They have equal access to opportunities and resources, and staff feel safe and encouraged to raise suggestions and try different things. The Equality Act 2010 sets out the legal definitions and rights for 9 protected characteristics, one of which is disability. Most neurodiverse workers will be covered under disability regardless of whether they consider themselves disabled or not. This provides them with important rights to reasonable adjustments and protection against discrimination, harassment and victimisation. Disability is defined as a physical or mental impairment that has substantial and long-term adverse effects on the person's ability to carry out normal day-to-day activities. This may be in their personal life or in their ability to participate fully and effectively in their working life. Employers have a legal obligation to comply with the Act, and as an example of this, they may develop policies and working practices that cover equality, diversity and inclusion. Let's look at types of discrimination. Direct discrimination is treating someone unfairly because they have a protected characteristic. Discrimination by perception is treating someone unfairly because you think they have a protected characteristic. Discrimination by association is treating someone unfairly because they are related to or associated with someone who has a protected characteristic. Indirect discrimination is when rules or arrangements apply to a group of people, but in practice are less fair to those with a certain protected characteristic. Harassment is unwanted conduct related to a protected characteristic with a purpose to intimidate, degrade, or humiliate an individual. Victimisation is treating someone unfairly because they have, or it's thought they have, supported a complaint related to a protected characteristic. There are also 2 types of discrimination arising from disability, and they are treating someone unfairly because of something that is a result of their disability, for example, difficulties reading for a person with dyslexia, and failure to make reasonable adjustments. It's important to note that additional legal protections exist for workers whose employers have failed to make reasonable adjustments that reduce or remove barriers. So what are reasonable adjustments? They are the steps taken to help an individual gain the most from their strengths by removing or reducing barriers they experience as a result of being neurodiverse. A reasonable adjustment could be made to the workplace or to the way things are done, or it could involve having someone support the worker or applicant. An example of a reasonable adjustment could be having noise-cancelling headphones for a worker that has ADHD. This helps them to block out background noise and allows them to concentrate more effectively. Reasonable adjustments should be made when the employer knows or could be reasonably expected to know a person has a disability. A person with a disability asks for adjustments, an employer is having difficulty with part of their job, or an employer's absence or sickness record, or there is a delay in returning to work because of their disability. It's important to also be aware that it can be difficult and quite a lengthy process for individuals to get a formal diagnosis. So it's good practice for the employees to focus on the reasonable adjustments that they can make rather than focusing on whether they have proof of a disability. And just to note, you cannot ask about disabilities prior to job offer unless it relates to an intrinsic part of the job. But you can check if any adjustments need to be made for interview. Where there's a cost for reasonable adjustments, it's the employer's responsibility to pay for it. However, the government's Access to Work scheme can help with advice and costs subject to circumstance. Even if adjustment has a significant cost associated with it, it may still be cost-effective overall when, for example, it's compared to the cost of recruiting and training a new staff member. When making adjustments, we should follow a process. Identify what reasonable adjustments may be needed. Consult with the worker. Remember, each person is a unique individual and it's not a one adjustment fits all kind of approach. You need to discuss with the individual which adjustments would be beneficial. It needs to be a two-way exchange. Research your options and get professional help where needed. Remember to gain permission from the individual first. It may be useful to make an OH referral or complete a workplace needs assessment. Only once you have all the information gathered and have consulted with the individual can you make a decision. Ensure that the adjustments are reviewed. Issue the staff member with a reasonable adjustments passport. This is kept by the employee and can be helpful when changing roles or departments, or if a new manager or supervisor joins the team. Let's have a look at some examples of adjustments that could be made. Adjustments to the work schedule could include allowing extra breaks as and when needed, adjusting start and finish times, and encouraging flexible working. Adjustments to the roles and responsibilities could include reviewing the workload and the agreed duties, prioritising tasks and reassigning duties that are difficult, and allowing as much flexibility as possible. Adjustments to the working environment could include providing room dividers to aid concentration and soundproofing, providing a private space to use when quiet time is needed, providing daylight, desk lamps, or adjustable light levels, and considering home working options. Equipment and technological support could include providing an organiser to assist with time management, use of speech-to-text software or speech recognition software, providing information in different formats, and providing screen overlays to reduce visual stress. When posting jobs, the employer should make sure the applicant has the opportunity to request reasonable adjustments, but also be aware that many people will not disclose they are neurodiverse. This could be because of fear of judgment or because they don't consider they have a disability. In order to attract more neurodiverse candidates, you should try to keep job adverts free from jargon and slang, instead using plain English. Focus on essential skills and experience required. Avoid unnecessary information. If using application forms, try to keep them easy to complete and provide clear instructions for completion. Communicate other ways the job can be applied for example, online, by email, or in person. You can provide examples of reasonable adjustments that you're able to make. This will help reinforce that you're providing a genuine invite to disclose any disability. Using the term neurodivergence and the phrase "do you require any reasonable adjustments" will help you to encourage disclosure. You may wish to consider providing notes during the application process that explain your recruitment process and the structure of your interviews. You could also include some sample questions for the applicant to look at. When it comes to interviews, there is a few things we can do to support neurodiverse applicants. Firstly, we can train those that carry out interviews to do so without bias and assumption, and to ensure they're following inclusivity policies. In particular, not to make assumptions based on body language or social competence. Allowing applicants to see the questions before the interview will give them some extra time to think about their answers and help to avoid overwhelm. When asking questions, they should be clear and specific. Avoid open-ended questions. Instead of a formal interview, you may choose to opt for a practical assessment or a paid work trial to see how the applicant performs on the job. For unsuccessful applicants, offer them the chance of feedback on their application. Ensure the feedback is clear and constructive. And for successful applicants, seek consent to share with their line manager so that they receive support from the offset. 6 steps to managing neurodiversity. Number 1, awareness of neurodiversity. Managers should be provided with information and training. Likewise, staff within the company should be provided with training. This will help with both awareness and appreciation for their neurodiverse colleagues. Step 2, communication. Communication should always be clear. For example, autistic individuals can struggle with a lack of structure or clear communication. They can at times also take things literally and do not always understand inferred meanings. It's important to be clear with instructions and with your guidance so they understand what's expected of them. Step 3, individuality. Each person is unique and individual, and those that are neurodiverse are no different. How their neurodiversity affects them will vary from person to person, along with the type of support or adjustments needed. As a manager, identify what each worker needs from you. Build good working relationships so that workers can approach you with concerns or problems. Step 4. One-to-ones. These should be held regularly to check how the worker is doing and identify any problems and see what support can be provided. Step 5. Workloads. Workload should be monitored and overloading avoided to prevent extra pressure. Step 6. Reflection. Managers should regularly reflect on how they can best manage each worker, checking that job roles, tasks and objectives are up to date and still relevant. By following these 6 steps, you should be able to create a safe and open workspace where individuals feel empowered to discuss their neurodiversity. How to encourage disclosure. Start by updating policies and guidance to include neurodiversity. Consider a standalone policy on neurodivergence. This can include a framework to follow when required and will show that as an employer you are taking reasonable steps to avoid discrimination and harassment. Highlight the company's commitment to support neurodiversity, detailing the actions that will be taken to improve the workplace, and try to share this information in different formats so that it's accessible for everyone. Having neurodiverse champions in the workplace again shows the commitment to support and encourages open conversations. Ensure that the champions are well known to workers. If an individual does disclose they're neurodiverse, you should discuss if they're happy for their manager or team to know, and how they would like this information to be shared. For example, would they like the manager to inform people? Would they like to be present? Or would they like to tell people themselves? Also clarify the level of detail they are comfortable in sharing. It's important to remember the information should only be shared with consent. Also consider a process for passing on information should the individual change teams. This way the process doesn't have to be repeated multiple times. Additional points to consider. Reasonable adjustments will differ from person to person depending on specific individual needs. It's a legal requirement that employers carry out a health and safety risk assessment for all staff. But if you're aware a worker has a disability, you should review your existing risk assessment to make sure that it covers any additional risks to them. You'll also need to give extra consideration on further risk assessments that may be needed for those who are neurodiverse or those working from home. It's common for neurodiverse people to process information differently to neurotypical people, so employers should communicate with all workers in a clear, concise and consistent manner. If you're making changes in the workplace, give staff as much notice as possible ahead of these changes. For example, as we've already mentioned, some individuals with autism need structure, so communicate changes clearly and give plenty of time to adjust when the changes are implemented. Employers have a duty of care towards their staff, meaning that they must do all they reasonably can to support their health, safety and well-being. Employers should look at ways to protect their staff's mental health and well-being in the workplace. In particular, consider those with communication difficulties or social anxiety. Remember that those with neurodivergent conditions are often more at risk of suffering from mental ill health or poor well-being. This is due to lack of support and the stress of masking. For anyone that hasn't come across the term masking, it's a behaviour that many neurodiverse people learn, often from a very early age. It's where they learn to act in a neurotypical way to prevent any negativity arising from being neurodiverse. Neurodivergent individuals can find masking incredibly exhausting, and this can factor into them suffering from burnout. If you do notice a decline in a staff member's mental health or well-being, then we'd suggest using a wellness action plan. If you haven't already got this in place, we can provide a template. Finally, let's look at some case law. Kamal Chu brought a claim against Starbucks, alleging disability discrimination after she was accused of falsifying records in relation to fridge and water temperatures, which she had entered incorrectly by mistake. Kamal Chu claimed she had disclosed this dyslexia to her employer and explained that she had difficulties with reading and writing. The tribunal found Starbucks had failed to make reasonable adjustments for the worker's disability and had discriminated against her because of the effects of her dyslexia. Instead of finding ways to support the worker in fulfilling her duties, Starbucks accused her of falsifying records and treated her unfavorably. This brings us to the end of the session. I hope you found the information useful. If you have any questions relating to this session, please email me directly at sam@hrprime.co.uk. Thank you.